10 Shocking Celebrity Deaths. Robin Williams. Without a doubt, one of the most heart-crushing deaths on this list, even though they're all heart-crushing regardless. Robin Williams seemed like a happy person on the outside. However, it had been well documented that he was suffering from depression. Williams hung himself and was found dead in his home in California. It has been recently revealed that it wasn't the depression that ultimately led to his death, but rather a struggle with Lewy body dementia that caused him to do what he did. We send out our deepest condolences to those close to Williams and his family. Michael Jackson, the king of pop. No one deserves that title more than Michael Jackson, and his songs will probably live on forever because they're simply legendary, just like his moonwalking. He began performing at a young age, singing in the Jackson 5, and then continuing his career as a solo artist, where he simply thrived. Not only was his music loved by people all across the world, but people also loved him for the person he was. His personal life was attacked on numerous occasions because of the many plastic surgeries he had and his efforts to change the color of his skin, not to mention the accusations of child sexual abuse. Michael died in bed after he suffered from cardiac arrest. His doctor, Conrad Murray, was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter after he injected Michael with an overdose of propofol, which brought about his death. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston is one of the best-selling pop artists of all time, and her death shocked the world. Not only was she one of the best singers that the world has ever had the pleasure of listening to, but she was also an accomplished actress and a loving mother. Houston overdosed on drugs and died after drowning in the bathtub of the hotel room where she was found. The manner of her premature death was not considered to be suicide, but rather an unfortunate accident. Kurt Cobain. Cobain was the lead singer and songwriter for the band Nirvana, which people fell in love with. However, being famous wasn't exactly an easy thing to deal with, and Cobain felt uncomfortable in the public eye. He disliked the attention and the media's focus on his personal life. Alongside this struggle with fame, Cobain suffered from depression and developed an addiction to heroin during the last years of his life. His body was found in his home by an electrician on April 8, 1994, although it's estimated that he actually died on April 5th. Although there were traces of drugs in his system, Cobain committed suicide by shooting himself in the head. Aaliyah. On August 25, 2001, Aaliyah and several other members of her recording company boarded a plane at the Marsh Harbor Airport in Abaco Islands, the Bahamas, to travel to the Opa-locka Airport in Florida. Their plane crashed 200 feet from the end of the runway and exploded, subsequently killing all those on board. The report on the crash determined that the plane was carrying 700 pounds more than it should have been. Originally, Aaliyah and her crew were scheduled to leave on the 26th, but after finishing the filming of her video for Rock the Boat early, she and her crew wanted to leave as quickly as they could, meaning they would fly home on a plane smaller than the one they arrived on, with all of their equipment, exceeding the weight limit and resulting in their deaths. Princess Diana. Diana, the Princess of Wales, died in 1997, and it's still incredibly raw for a lot of people. She was one of the best things that ever happened to the royal family, and the public absolutely adored her for her grace, her spirit, and her compassion. She was involved in some incredible charity work, and she dedicated her life to helping others, making her the perfect role model and princess to the people. Princess Diana died in a car crash in Paris. No one survived the crash, and her driver was accused of drinking and driving under the influence. More people watched her funeral than her wedding, and the public are still mourning for her now. Steve Irwin. This man was one of the most entertaining people you've ever had the pleasure of watching, and he truly deserved his nickname, the Crocodile Hunter. Not only was he a wildlife expert with extensive knowledge and bravery when it came to facing fearsome animals across the planet, but he was also funny, loving, and compassionate, which were qualities that came across whenever you watched him in his line of work. Unfortunately, Steve died in 2006 after approaching a stingray, and its stinger punctured his heart and lung. However, it's nice to see his daughter still having a loving relationship with the animals after what happened to her loving father. Paul Walker. Paul Walker was an American actor who was best known for his role as Brian O'Connor in the Fast and the Furious movies. The relationships that he developed with his co-stars prove how much he was loved by them, and they were all deeply affected by his death. Best friend Vin Diesel is still struggling to come to terms with Paul's death, and it's painful to watch him talk about his beloved friend. Walker died in a car crash in the winter of 2013, and it brought the world to a standstill. He was truly loved by his fans, not just because of his acting talents, but because he was such a beautiful person. Walker was working on filming Fast and Furious 7 when he died, and the production stopped to give the team time to grieve. The story was changed, and he was given a well-deserved tribute. Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger was a remarkable Australian actor who was successful not only because of his acting abilities, but also because of his likability. While he was known for many roles, his most prominent is probably that of Batman's iconic nemesis, the Joker, in Christopher Nolan's film The Dark Knight. He won a number of awards for the role, including the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, and it's pretty much now a legendary cinematic portrayal, and rightly so. After filming The Dark Knight, Ledger was working on the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, and he was finding it difficult to sleep. He was completely exhausted and took some prescribed drugs, which he unfortunately overdosed on and died from combined drug intoxication. John Lennon. John Lennon still lives on through the legend of the Beatles. The Beatles was a British band that he co-founded in the 1960s, and they're one of the most, if not the most, famous bands in the entire history of the world. However, Lennon's fame and musical ability meant that he made enemies. His biggest came in the form of Mark David Chapman. Chapman shot Lennon in the back 4 times and killed him as he was returning home with his wife Yoko Ono. Chapman had supposedly been planning the murder for months after hearing that Lennon had blasphemed by saying the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. Despite being a Beatles fan himself, Chapman was angered at this comment, which insulted his religion. Our deepest condolences go out to the friends and families of John Lennon and to all of the celebrities on this list who have passed on.